There's quite a spoiler alert in the title of this fireside chat, because there's what do the Google updates mean for you? Japan is next, so that's a massive spoiler alert right there. Well, as soon as you're ready to kick it off, then Sam, I'd like to sort of give the floor to you to introduce your panelists.
Test. Oh, there we go. Great.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for coming. How many in this room are developers, publishers? Raise your hand, please. 2, 3, 4. Great. You, of course. I'm Sam Gaglani. I'm the EVP of Global Business Development at Xsolla. I'm going to introduce my panel here. Bob, start.
Hi, everyone. Bob Slinn. I head of business development for FunPlus. We're a developer focused on free-to-play gaming, headquartered in Switzerland. The bulk of our teams are in China. We make a lot of 4X games, Data Survival, DC, Dark Legion, etc. And we've been doing quite a lot on D2C over the past couple of years.
Marina.
I'm Marina. I'm VP of BD at Tilting Point. We're also mobile-first game developer and publisher. We mostly have IP-based games. So we have Star Trek, Warhammer, SpongeBob. We've been leveraging a lot of IPs through the years. And besides that, we do UA financing. We've acquired a couple of studios like Batch from Canada, kids games. So we've expanded our reach through different segments. And we've also done a lot with Xsolla and D2C in general in the last 2 years, especially.
Yes, it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone knows Tayber because he's been on stage for the last 40 minutes. But for the people that are new in the room.
Sure, I'm Tayber. I'm the CEO of Thinking Ape Games, and we are part of Embracer and the Deca Group. And so we are located in Vancouver. We have 6 live games that have been around for over a decade. And as part of Deca, we have 36 games in that portfolio, and I'm responsible for all the growth and user acquisition, as well as being CEO of Thinking Ape. So I'm a busy guy. Yeah.
Busy guy over here. So thank you all for coming. Today, we're going to talk about, I think at a high level, what's been going on in the world with the regulations. So everyone in this room, I'm sure you've been noticing there's been a lot of changes recently. How many are confused? Raise your hand, because I'm sort of confused about it. So for the last, I would say 3 weeks, our team has really been looking at what the regulations mean. What we're going to talk about today is what we kind of see happening. I'm going to be asking these guys their take on it. However, there are 2 dates everyone in this room should know about right now. January 21st, and if you know what's happening on January 21st, you can raise your hand. If you don't, I will tell you. And January 28th. January 21st is when, in the United States, a judge, his name's Judge Donato, is going to re-review the Apple versus Epic case. This is a big deal, guys, because what could potentially happen is he could say, maybe we overreached in that initial ruling, and we are going to claw back what happened. Or he could say, it's all good, we're going to continue on. So that is literally 2 days away. As there are huge implications for you, people that are steering users or offering call to actions to direct people outside of their apps to a web store or D2C destination. January 28th is a date that these 3 are all very familiar with, because that is when Google makes you enroll in a program in the United States, which basically says, you need to install an API tracking link. You need to now start paying a commission for either steering users or having users go to a direct-to-consumer experience. That also could be ruled by the United States court system to say, that's not quite what we had in mind. So those are 2 dates to keep in mind in the United States. What's going on in Europe essentially means you still have to pay Apple and Google something. In the United States right now, if you're on the iOS device and you want to redirect users, it's a 0% commission. If you're on the Google platform right now, it's sort of you should be enrolling. I'm going to ask these guys what they've done, and they may or may not say. And you currently do not have to pay, but you could have to pay on January 28th. Is anyone still confused? Because I just threw a lot of information at you. I have it in a chart form. If you want to DM me privately, we can talk about it. But it is very confusing, I think, by design. And this is something we will go into. So that being said, the preamble, have you guys interpreted it the same way? We have talked about this at length. I will start with, you've been talking a lot, so I'll start with Bob, because Bob, I know and then we'll go to you and then Tayber. But Bob, what do you think? Is this, I'll let you kind of take it from
No,
here.
no, I mean, as you all have sensed and probably are living along with us, it's an incredibly complicated, constantly moving landscape with the regulatory environment. Sam didn't even touch on a couple of other markets, Japan and Brazil included, where there are pending changes. So I think the only clear thing is that this will continue to change, and there will continue to be a lot of back and forth, market by market, and depending on the market, there'll either be governments involved, as in the case with the EU. In the US, you'll have individual litigation that may drive it. It's incredibly complicated. I think, the way we look at it, I think at a high level, all of that makes sense. And I think the US is the most interesting and challenging market at the same time, and it was the most extreme settlement in the sense that you can technically link out directly from your app to your own payments and pay no commission, and there's no tracking. Obviously, that's being contested, but I think that's the most liberal currently as of today, literally today, and we'll see in a couple of days. I think the way we think about it is there's sort of two levels of the business. There is a lot, what Tayber was talking about, which is building a direct-to-consumer business, building relationships with your players, your customers, and web shops, broader consumer experiences. I mean, Tayber and others talked about that quite eloquently and in detail before, but that business is in some ways outside of this regulatory battle. If you connect to your players in another channel outside of the game, you can do whatever you want, and you can build a consumer relationship just like any other e-commerce business or a subscription business. And I think we've been focusing on that a lot for 3+ years now, and have built quite a sizable business where players transact directly with us, and we have achievements and community and a whole bunch of other things that live outside of our mobile apps. And then there is this other, how much can you do inside your game to direct people to payment? And that's where all of this regulatory craziness is ongoing and is complex and will continue to change. So we kind of look at it at two levels, and we are experimenting in the markets where the regulations are changing, but we continue with a longer term approach of this direct to consumer.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think in our case, for sure, we're following very closely because that potential fee post the 28th, it makes a huge impact. And what we've been doing most is external links. So for us, if that comes into play, it definitely puts us in, we need to make a decision. Are we going to remove the links from Google? For sure, we're going to continue on iOS, but for sure, we're not going to be able to pay if you add all of the fees, one on top of the other, then it kind of defeats the purpose of why we're doing this from the beginning. So we're following very closely. We have our own cheat sheets to try to follow every market, every regulation. But it's, as you said earlier, it does feel like they make it difficult almost on purpose. For example, the fact that Japan is the same regulation for iOS and Google, it's positive because, I mean, at least,
it's complex, though, if you look at it.
Yeah, it is complex, I agree, but at least they look at both, and I was reading at it, they see both stores in the end as the same product, right? So why would you have different regulations for the same idea or the same concept? Well, for different reasons, but in the EU and the US, it's different regulations for each. So in our case, we have been doing mostly US, our focus, because our focus for our games, US is the primary market, as I assume. Same for you. So we've been doing in the past 2 years a lot more in the US versus EU, and that's where we've been having external links, etc. So for us, definitely the regulations make a difference. So the way we approach it is we take advantage of the windows that exist because we don't know how they will evolve, but when they exist, we want to leverage those. We're not going to wait.
Yeah, it's a moving target, right? Yeah.
I think we do have the resources to experiment a bit and to implement those. And while those windows exist, which might be actually a long period of time, we want to take advantage of them. We don't want to wait and for the regulations. We're willing to take those maybe small risks. Because we don't know, it's very
Experimentation in a
uncertain.
way.
Yeah, so we're more in the experimentation mindset with external links rather than conservative. That's why we've been working with you guys aggressively, like intensively in the last 2 years on it. Yes.
Tayber.
No comment, no.
You cannot go on the whole panel with no comment.
I can't say that on the panel.
I always preface this with saying that the most important partners in our business are Apple and Google, okay?
Well said.
Very true.
So, is anybody from Apple or Google here? Yeah. No, okay, but it is being filmed. So, the thing that I would say is what we try to do is make it so that everything that has to do with any kind of linking inside the app is server driven so that we can be reactive to whatever it is that we need to do to be compliant to whatever policies happen. In general, though, our business is designed around long-term retention and long-term customers. So as I mentioned in the last panel, we focus on a D2C strategy rather than worrying about, how many people are we going to drive from in-app to the web shop. We think about how do we create the best experience for our customers.
And is that it sounds like that's now like standard operating procedure on any new app you're going to release, right? So you've added that as a workflow for your dev teams, right?
Correct.
Okay. So these are three big. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that to be open with the audience. For us, at least, it's been a challenge because we're very used to doing marketing in a certain way, and we were doing a lot more of this external links rather than focusing maybe on the D2C, just because we've always been mobile publisher. So we had our marketing, I assume, like you guys, very polished, and we had our funnels very defined, and so it has been a challenge to rethink how to do UA. And while community earlier or other channels more, as you were discussing in the previous panel, getting inspiration from other industries, valuing more CRM, loyalty programs. So it has been, as I assume for a lot of you here, once you have nailed your UA standard strategy, rethinking it is a challenge, and you need maybe new talent in the team. And so it hasn't been
Different mindset,
different
for
mindset.
sure.
And yeah, things that in the past you would think are less important,
Yeah.
now take a different perspective, and you cannot rely so much in your typical bring people to the app, get them to spend there, transact through Apple. Like, okay, if we're really doing this, we need to change marketing, community, and all of those teams as well a little bit.
And Bob, you guys have a huge team, like because of the nature of your company. So because you've been doing it for a while, like it's no secret, but is the amount of manpower or people power that you're now throwing at it exponentially grown, or because you've started to see this better at, margin play, or was it always part of FunPlus's strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we have been doing this for a while, and when I say this, I mean, again, Tayber's point is correct. We are a mobile-first company. The huge majority of our players play on Apple and Google. So we continue to build games with that experience in mind. But broadly speaking, we've had the ambition to be a cross-platform gaming company like a lot of people, and so we have a PC presence. And as you continue to think about that evolution of where players are going to play, the idea of having a direct relationship with players makes a lot of sense. So I think we talked about this last year. There is clearly a tactical element to building web stores and margin pressures and building a successful business, but there is this longer term idea of how do you interact with your players and how do you change that experience. So the question of the teams, we have it. It's part of the playbook. When we launch a new game, we launch the mobile versions, we launch a PC version, and we launch a web store. And there's a central platform team that builds a web store. And then I think, Tayber, you were touching on this before, we have quite big live games teams, and then we have live ops teams that run, again, we make strategy games. They're heavily event driven, and there's all sorts of pretty deep community, and I think similar idea. Those teams also manage the web shop experiences. It's not the same experience, but there's very much a similar mindset, which is because we have achievements, because we have community, there's quite a deep experience in what was once a web shop is now broader D2C experience. So there's a lot of the same mindset. And even the types of packages, we have a separate currency that only lives in the web shops.
Exclusive currency.
So that means there's a different merchandising, different monetization, which again, we've been learning a lot in the last couple of years of what works and what doesn't. But yeah, so the teams aren't exponentially bigger because we have kind of a playbook and a toolkit that the teams can leverage.
That you've leveraged over several years. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because these are three companies that have quite a large, like each of these companies have big people behind them. Like I think you're over
About
1,000,
1,500.
1,500, couple hundred.
We're like 300.
Tabor.
100.
Now, people in this room are like, well, there's like 4 of us, or maybe 10. If you were in their shoes, this is the high level question. If you were in their shoes, I mean, is it a huge lift? This is the $1 million question, right? Like, do I do it? If I do it, how much more extra time is it going to be? Tabor, earlier, I think you had touched on it, but high level, if you were like talking to someone that's thinking about doing it, it's a small studio, mid-sized 20, 30 person shop. What would you suggest?
Yeah, do it.
It's worth it, right?
It's worth it. Yeah. Something I got wrong early in my career, I used to be the head of product, and something I didn't really think enough about was the relationship with the paying customer on a like individual basis. So, it'd be kind of like, oh, one of our whales stopped spending. I'm like, I don't know, tell the UA team to like ramp up budgets. We'll get another one. And like, can you imagine if you ran a restaurant and like your best customer that comes in every week just stops coming in and like they're gonna like figure out what's going on, or like any kind of store that you have a relationship with, like in games we're just kind of like, oh well, they're not playing anymore. Well, no big deal. Now we think about it differently. Like we want these people to come back. If we like have a VIP team that goes and says, hey, we noticed that you're friends with this player who is really big in the game and they stop playing. Can you help us figure out how do we get them back in? What do they want? Where are they? Why aren't they talking to us? Like it's really important to keep those relationships alive. So it's not even about just the web shop. It's just a tool that allows you to create a better connection with your customer.
Pipeline, yeah.
And like the platforms don't have the best tools for that anymore. I wish that they did, but they don't.
They don't. And I'm curious to hear your
Just to add to that and to the small team perspective, when we started, we didn't have a lot of people dedicated to that. So we put together very simple web shops, and actually even now we're working on improving the web shop per se, because we realized that for more than a year our web shops were not, even when we were purchasing there and all, not very optimized. So we started with small teams, or like somebody who actually was a product manager also working on the web shop. So I do think that putting it together, and I'm sure you guys have tools, it is simple and you don't need a lot of people on the team to do it. At least that was our experience when we started doing it more as a experimental, and let's see if this really is worth it, to then invest more resources and dedicate more of the team time on it. I think in the beginning it was more of like some people that were doing something else started to work on the web shop, so we didn't hire a D2C
a
team
specific person,
dedicated to it. No, it was more like, okay, let's try this out, get resources we find online, get inspiration from what other web shops are doing. We can see it from Playtika or Triple Dot. You can see a lot of best practices, and that's a good thing about web shops, that you can see what others are doing and get inspiration from that. So I would for sure recommend, and we've discussed this often, and when we do mentorships, especially in Barcelona for studios that are starting.
Oh, you're doing that? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, well, we're sponsors to one of an accelerator, and the topic is Games VCN. And and you are too. And the topic is coming up very often, because in the end, for them, every dollar matters, like for all of us. But when you're starting, even more, and it's an opportunity at hand, why not taking it? And yeah.
Yeah, just add on to the question of do you do it yourself or not? I mean, we ended up building a team, and we already had a sort of a central platform team. I guess I would say, to add on to the 2 points, there's the one thing is think about the longer term strategic goal like this idea, really, how do you connect with your players? And this is really a unique opportunity to actually build a one-to-one relationship if you don't have it already. Yeah. But it requires a whole different, Marina, you're talking about, a whole different skill set, right? There's a bunch of different things you need to do.
Yeah.
But I guess the other point of it is there is a lot of technical work that needs to happen. And even at our scale, we don't run any of the back-end payments, because it's a whole different skill set that we have no pretense of having. And we work with a range of partners. Even though we actually run the customer-facing part, we partner with Xsolla and a whole bunch of other reasonably hardcore payments partners. We were partnered with PayPal or Adyen or you name it. We have partners for different regions, some of whom are like really just pure back-end payments providers, some do more. And so I guess I'd say there's sort of a stack depending on how big you are. If you're really small, just Xsolla or one of the other people on the Xsolla. There you go. We're on the Xsolla pan. There are people who can do a very good job of the entire thing, and if the bigger you get, the more you want to bring in house, and that's how we started. We initially we really outsourced everything, and then we've slowly built more and more. And we're at a stage where I think the payments part, and you look at e-commerce companies 25 years ago, it was really hard to optimize payments, and it's still hard. I mean, all this stuff, it's very different. The merchandising, the processing, they were talking about the basket abandonment, all this stuff. So there are partners who are incredibly good at it. So I think it's this, you start small and then you figure out which parts you want to do and which parts you have teams and expertise to
Also,
manage.
I guess for some games, I don't know how you guys, if you do the same for all your games. For us, because we have some strategy games, but then other casual titles, we also decide where do we put more effort into. We know in some, like in Star Trek Timelines, for example, the percentage of revenue that we see can come from, like the outcome of those efforts is more rewarding than in SpongeBob Krusty Cuckoo, for example. We have a different audience and it will take more time. We're also putting efforts behind it, but we also know with limited resources, where do we allocate more time in optimizing the web shop, in thinking more about live ops. We have stronger monetization teams to make sure with our web shops experiments we're not breaking the game's economy, because that's also a bit of a risk. So we've also decided where to put more efforts. I think we have like 3 games that are our key web shop games, and the others, we do have a web shop, but we know the revenue is not yet super significant.
So, Bob, your companies are very sophisticated in that you're at that optimization phase in your payment, when you're working with payment providers. For smaller studios, I think, like Bob said, you launch, you start seeing that revenue come in, and then you start to get to a phase where FunPlus is, where they are optimizing and they are using several providers, and they're doing it for, basically margin is what it comes down to. Like, would you say that's a big piece of it?
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously an advantage, like any business, the closer you can go to the source, the better. And if you partner directly with a payment provider, but again, we have reasonably large teams, and so we have 10, maybe 12 different payment providers, and we have to manage those. So in some ways, we almost operate like a ad stack waterfall, depending on the market. We might have a more advantageous rate with MasterCard from partner X versus Y. So yeah, it gets quite complicated. But I think the other point, of course, is it's more. And there's been a bunch of panels on this idea of unlocking or opening up, and I think this will be increasingly strategic. Marina's point's very valid, though it depends on the type of game. I think the more casual the game, the lower the friction needs to be, and you have to. But again, like everything, test and experiment. But I think our types of games are tailor-made for this. We have a bunch of incredibly engaged players. We have one-to-one relationships with them outside the app already. There's a logical step forward with building on the already direct relationship, I should say.
So, Tayber, I was going to ask one, but did you want to add anything, or?
Well, I think, your original question, but how much extra lift is it? Like, if you've ever authored an IAP, like generated the data that you have to send to Apple that then communicates back to your API, it's the same for Google and it's the same for Apple. And Xsolla's done a really good job of making that part seamless. And it's actually faster for us to do an Xsolla offer than it is to do an IAP.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
because we don't have to go to the store and get an approval. It's all through Xsolla.
You just
so
do
it's
it.
instant.
Yeah.
So we actually use Xsolla to experiment to be faster. It's not.
Interesting.
It's actually easier to do.
Interesting. So my question now is, like, where do you think there's a power? Like I said, we're keeping this high level because we did do a workshop, but do you think there's a shift in power between? I don't know how you want to touch this subject, but yeah, like I see personally, I think there's a shift, but what we're seeing now are the platforms making very Byzantine, structures on how they're going to extract that D2C offering. I wouldn't say there's a massive power shift yet. We'll see in the next week, I guess. But high level, where do you kind of see this going 5, 10 years? You can be as politically correct as you want or not. It's up to you. I will start with Marina.
I mean, I mean, in our case, as he was saying before, we still, like Google and Apple are, so they still have a lot of power, at least for our games. And the way we look at it, we've been talking even to them a lot about web shops, how we think about them. So it's been in the conversation with them too. So even the fact that it's part of the conversation, that the new regulations coming forward, clearly there is at least a change of power. I don't know if like the power is like somewhere else now, they still have it, but like a couple of years ago, we were not having this conversation. So definitely,
True.
it's a new paradigm in a way.
Paradigm for sure.
That's for sure. I think that the direction they're going now with you can have external links and web shops, but you still pay as revenue. It is at least for us not enough. As in, okay, then I'm gonna remove the links, or I'm gonna work much more on the D2C strategy, so I get people to my web shop from other places, which is also something on the conversation, as in, will it last forever? Because obviously it's a way for developers to then send people to the web shops from their community or other places. And maybe at some point, no, Google and Apple, and I've been reading a lot about it, they say, okay, on that, we'll also find a way to make you pay for it. That's why I was saying earlier, the windows that exist now, we can, and we're also 100% compliant with everything. We don't want any issues with them at all.
Yep, of course.
When I was saying we take risks, like we are kind of adventurous in trying, but we're always compliant. So we think that the current policies might not be like exactly where we're gonna end up. I think in the future we'll see with external links and web shops, I think less fees from Google and Apple than where it's landed now, because as I said earlier, if you combine their fees plus the web shop fees, it's high.
It's high.
So I don't think this is our ultimate destination. I think they are rethinking about what other features can they give developers so the web stores remain useful for discoverability, for like points, rewards, so things like that I know are very centric in their conversation, like rethinking the stores a bit. And I think it's gonna go more in that direction, like a new shape of the stores maybe, where we can see more value, hopefully.
Do you see them lowering their fees just outright down to like 12 to 15%? It's maybe 5 years from now, Tayber.
Are there any lawyers in the room? I'm being mean to lawyers.
Is it time for questions? No.
I think any time that you have a significant room full of lawyers deciding what's going to happen for product strategy, the end user is not going to have a great time. They're not thinking about that.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
So I think we're in that state right now. I don't think it's permanent, because I don't think it's going to be good for the customer. And I think at some point, everybody's going to realize that and start to act in the best interest of the customer. I think that's the final outcome. How we get there and what it looks like along the way. We tend to be quite risk averse. I think that's just nature of I'm a very risk averse person in general. So for us, at least, we're going to wait and see what happens and try to be the best partner that we can, both with you guys and with Apple and Google.
Of course.
But yeah, I don't know. Lawyers running the show is never.
I would say lawyers and high-paid consultants is what I'm seeing, because some of these schemes they've come out with, I'm like, there has to be someone from McKinsey that came up with that.
But everybody that I talk to at Apple or Google, any of our account managers, they all are very, very customer focused, very player focused. They want what's best for the player and the customer. So I can't really, I don't know where the disconnect is happening, but it's not with the people that I know at those companies. They're all great.
Yep.
I mean, I think that, look, if you rewind 10 years ago, I mean, everyone, you think about the App Store and it's this dominant, both the App Stores are incredibly dominant, but you think of the revolution that's happened in the last 10 years, and you think of the fact you went from low hundreds of millions of gamers to billions of gamers. That's Apple, and that's the App Store. That's Apple and mobile devices and the stores that come with it. So, there's this incredible explosion in value that's happened. Now, obviously, like any new market, there's been a shift, and you have two dominant players. I think Tayber's point is right. They're ultimately, the players have benefited enormously from the devices and the content that all of us have built for that. But the economics are becoming more challenging, and the balance of value is evolving, and also technology is making there are more and more platforms to play on, and that's
Correct,
and I think if you look at the consoles who are 20 years or more ahead in this platform cycle, you look at someone like Xbox and the shift they're starting to make, which is they're really starting to think about the player can interact with the games anywhere.
Correct.
So you can see how this is starting to evolve, and Apple has the Mac Store, and Google has Google Play for PC. So you can see, I think there's going to be this shift to players, helping support players so they can play wherever they want, on whatever device they want. But yeah, there is definitely going to be a bumpy road between that ideal use case and the reality today, because there's so much money at stake. It's a $200 billion industry, and mobile is
money at
over
stake.
half of that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people with a lot at stake. So hence, of course, it's going to be very, very complex, and market by market, there'll be battles legally, as Tayber referenced.
As you said, I would argue, or not, I would think that at some point, or moving forward for the rest of your careers, D2C will always be a pillar of your strategy, right? You're always going to have a D2C destination. Or could you see that disappearing? No, right? Because you want to have that relationship.
Feel like a fool for not having engaged in this.
That's
at
the
very
line of the
beginning.
day.
Yeah, from the previous panel, when they asked what do you regret, what would you do differently, I think we would have started earlier and
Started earlier? Really?
optimizing everything earlier. Like, yes,
We had a web version of one of our games for a long time, and when Flash died, it was a Flash game. We were just like, well, we'll just shut it down. It's just like some people do web payments there; it's a better margin, but we hadn't made it a core part of our business. And I'm just like, why? What were we thinking? We're so just focused on like, what's the next game and growth, and like getting more users, and we'll get more users, and then eventually everything will something. And now I'm like, we had all these people that were engaged with the game, and we didn't engage with them.
in our case, we're soon launching some of our games on the web. So we're going to, our own portal.
Interesting,
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So I think we started this a year ago, more or less, actually. So we're going to take 7 of our games, our best games, into the web, our own portal, and that's going to be like our main destination for Tilting Point, and kind of try to also build more community around cross games. Because in the end, we have a large portfolio, and a lot of players who play one game are a good target player for another game. So we're gonna go a lot more into the like a reward system across games.
Smart,
So
yeah.
yeah, so we're thinking, to your question about do you see D2C in your career forever, at least the way we're thinking about it is yes.
Yeah.
Cross-platform, and we're trying to figure out how to do exactly, but cross-platform with our mobile bill and the web bills, with more
That is
loyalty.
the theme I'm seeing a lot
Yes.
of. Yeah.
Loyalty system, VIP, a better VIP management system too. So combined with a new funnel, so we drive more people to that destination instead of to our apps necessarily. So again, this is all early days for us in that web adventure, but we're gonna double down in 2026 on that, and it has a lot to do with our direct-to-consumer strategy and web and all of that. So we'll see how it works out, but it's something we're excited about.
Great. And Bob, I know that's the DNA of the company, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. FunPlus started out once upon a time making games for Facebook, and then moved with everyone else to mobile, and the original studio was sold. But yeah, absolutely. I think the key point is just think about your players, and think about the technology is continuing to shift, as we saw mobile came and social before that, and now I think cross-platform is more and more of a reality, and having a direct relationship with your players allows both the players to play wherever they want, but also us to interact with the players in a multitude of ways. So I think it's absolutely beneficial.
I'd say reality, and also a must cross-platform.
Well, look,
Right?
kids don't care about platforms. The first game that
True,
a kid plays is
true.
Minecraft. Every kid in the world plays Minecraft as their first game. For some reason, parents are like, that's the safe game.
It
right?
was for me
fine, it's
when I
fine.
gave
Yeah,
it to
it's
my
fine.
kid.
Fine.
Right, and then they play Roblox. Both of those games you can play on any platform, and they're not
absolutely
high
right.
def. They're just games, and they go and play them on their iPad, then they play on the
iPad.
computer, then they play on their phone.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They expect to find
They
them
expect
whatever
it.
they.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's like a.
So
like a
we're
given.
running short on time. Does anyone have questions? You smiling? No, maybe. If anyone has a question, yes, go for it.
Thank you. I'll jump into the question. So in the US, with the changes that are coming from Google's end, there's the key date of the 28th, which is the enrollment date. At the moment, as I understand it, the fees, it's not yet certain, not yet clear. It just says future. So there is a scenario where we have an enrollment date coming, but not knowing when fees could be coming at all, right? Like, or how far along they will be coming, but we don't know when. And there's a lot of tech work involved as well with the enrollment. So I'm just curious to know how you're thinking about that enrollment date if fees are not clear by then, within the rounds of what you can share, of course.
Just, I guess the really quick answer on our side is there's been so much uncertainty on the Google side. We haven't been very active in the direct link code. As I said at the beginning, we've really focused more on this ongoing process of building a direct-to-consumer relationship. But yeah, I think it's incredibly complex. I mean, and you can continue to operate outside of the app as normal. I think the key element is this is really if you have been linking out directly from the app, then you are in this.
Yeah, we haven't enrolled yet, but we're like, I mean, we're still talking to make a decision, so I cannot give you a final answer. I think from what we've seen on the fees of like between 9%, 20%, depending if it's cosmetics or things that affect the gameplay, which is also a little bit open. So we are trying to get information both from the source, from Google, talking to our partners like Xsolla, trying to decide if we're going to enroll or not. I think most probably we're thinking more like opt out and see what happens. Or we're trying to get as much clarity as we can to then make a decision, because we're on the same page as exactly what you said, like a bit uncertainty. The fees has been shared, the 5% plus then 9 or 20%. If that's the case, and like we may end up just not having external links, focus more on the D2C and continue pushing on iOS because there's 0% fee there, but not have it on Google just because it wouldn't make sense. So we're there now. Most likely we don't opt in, and if we need to remove the links after the 28th, we will, and we'll focus more on iOS. That's our current approach to the situation, but we don't have a lot more information than they are all super cautious now with what they share.
Yeah, we just turned off all the links and we'll wait and see. Like it's not part of our core strategy to link out from the store. So for us, it's an easy choice to wait and see. It's just too risky risk reward isn't there.
Also the API integrations, we don't clear, like what's it gonna take, when is it gonna be released? Like is the expectation that developers will integrate the API in like what period of time? It seems like a big effort, no?
And Google's also requiring people to integrate more of their Google Play, like player social stuff in order to be the other level up stuff. And so like that's what we got to do that. And that's like a whole bunch of tech work. So focused on that. And for the link out, we'll just turn it off until we figure out what's the right thing to do.
Thanks for the question. We are at time, so if you guys have any more questions, you can just find us off stage. Thanks, everyone. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Yeah.